Welcome to Week in Geek, everyone. I'm your host, the Dark Knave, with his henchman, Cram. Feels like there's something that happened this week.
Something pretty big, right?
Feels like it, right? In the Geek universe, or... Bad. So, Star Wars came out this past week, and Cram and I had the opportunity to see it, and let me just say that I found it to be an absolute delight. I was really excited to see fun coming back into the Star Wars universe. The first three prequels were a little horribly acted and plotting.
They were crap. They were crap.
But Abrams jumps in with his customary wit and humor and breathes some love and affection into the Star Wars universe, much as he did with the Star Trek universe. And I have a feeling it's going to be like Star Trek, where people either love it or they hate it. And quite frankly, I loved it.
Yeah, my take on it was that I thought he did a really good job of honoring the legacy stuff in terms of 4, 5, and 6, but then still carrying the story forward. They still open up the way they always do, where you've got the crawl and you've got, you come down to the planet and then you've got a ship that interrupts. But this time around, the ship comes up and it completely ends up obscuring your vision of the planet. So it was something a little bit different to put their own spin on it. As my wife said, it felt like, she was seeing old friends that she hadn't seen in a while.
There's a Mrs. Cram?
Yeah.
That's something new every day. I love the fact that the Jedi are back to being master swordsmen as opposed to ninjas, because I really hated the flippity-flip action and the pinball Yoda and all that video game looking nonsense from the prequels. It's nice to just see them pulling out the swords and having a good old classic Errol Flynn style sword fight. And of course, every film is only as good as its villain, and this film brought us two, and I rather liked them both. Truly enjoyed Kylo Ren. I know some people out there think he's a little emo. Personally, I enjoy finally seeing somebody from the dark side with a bit of a temper problem, as, I thought I had rage mode problems. That kid is definitely on the hot side.
I was really happy to see that, though. I was happy to see that there was actually an expression of just like an outpouring of rage, and it shows where he's at. I think comparatively speaking, when you think about him as compared to some of the other Sith Lords and things like that, it shows that he's still immature.
Right.
And it shows that he's still willing to let even his anger get the best of him and just lash out. Yep,
as opposed to the other Sith Lords who were a little more like evil and sinister and classic villains like Dooku, who was like, I am evil and classy, and it was nice to see somebody just lose their minds with rage falling into the dark side. I loved it.
I think that his struggle is interesting and helps to drive the story forward, and I think it helps people to see the other angle of it, the other side of it. Like, when you've gone to the dark side, but yet you feel the pull back, it's almost reminiscent of what Darth Vader ended up going through.
And Luke to some extent.
Yes, and
in
Luke
Return of the Jedi. Too. The helmet on voice is probably one of my favorite villain voices in film history. I also enjoyed the general in charge of the new Death Planet, or whatever you want to call it. Starkiller Base. It harkens back to Grand Moff Tarkin and Darth Vader, the relationship they had, where Kylo's not really the guy in charge. Originally, Darth wasn't either. That kind of happened naturally over the films, but it was nice to see somebody kind of telling Kylo, "Hey kid, relax." That was refreshing. I enjoyed that.
I thought it was pretty good. Overall, I thought the character development was really good. I would have liked to have seen more from certain characters. I think a little bit more of Poe, although I know he was written in a little bit extra later. More Poe.
Plus, he was originally supposed to die.
He was. That's why. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He was written in a little bit more. Captain Phasma. Definitely need to have more of Captain Phasma coming up. There's an opportunity with her, and I'm sure that they'll take advantage of her in 8 and 9.
She's an imposing figure. She's such a massive mountain of a woman that, and especially in the armor, she's even more imposing. I'm sure they'll bring her back in at some point. Love the cameos, by the way. For those of you who don't know, the mind-controlled stormtrooper in the torture scene is actually Daniel Craig, so you get a little 007 in that suit. That was very clever. You had Ewan McGregor's voice appearing during the fantasy sequence. That was very cool.
I thought that they did a good job of leaving a lot of questions that still need to be answered across the next couple movies in terms of, you know, answering the questions about Rey, which is obviously the biggest outstanding question that everybody's going to have. Like,
Sure.
How did she develop her powers so fast? How did she, you know, why was it so natural for her? Has she had some exposure to this before? Is it just based on the stories that they've heard through the myths and legends? And who told her those myths and legends? She pretty much seems to be by herself.
Or whose kid is she?
Or whose kid is she? Which is the ultimate question that everybody wants to answer. There's several theories that are out there right now.
Yep, the big three being, is she Kylo's twin sister? A lot of twins in the Skywalker family.
Yep.
Is she Luke's kid? She certainly dresses and acts like him from the first movie, except for with less whining.
And the way that they interact at the very end of the movie, his reaction does say quite a bit.
And then Cram has a third theory.
And then the third theory could be, that at least one that I've read, is that it could be spontaneous generation, kind of like Anakin Skywalker was, where it's essentially an immaculate conception type theory.
We'll see what happens. Personally, I'm of the mind that she's Kylo's twin. Loving the direction they're heading in. I was very pleased with the secrecy behind the entire project. Very few spoilers were leaked, if any. That contributed to some really cool misdirection on the part of some of the movie posters, most notably Luke's absence from the poster, and love the fact that Finn is holding the lightsaber in many of the posters. Total feint and misdirection on that part. I thought that was very cool stuff.
Although I won't completely close the door on whether or not he's Force Awakened, I think there is a slight possibility, although it really does seem to be like, you know, Rey's the one. But, you know, who knows? It's possible that he might be.
So overall, though, great movie. There's going to be a lot of people out there who nitpick this thing to death between now and the next one. There's going to be people out there who are haters. That being said, if you really truly were a fan of the original trilogy, this is a fantastic film and really does a nice job of picking up where that one left off and paying a lot of nice homage moments to the original trilogy. Highly recommend checking it out. I know Cram and I are going to see it again soon. This week, all of the shows on TV are on hiatus, and there wasn't a whole ton of stuff happening in the geek world because Star Wars came out and pretty much took over the universe. So, Cram and I finally got around to finishing off Jessica Jones. I'm holding up the paperwork because Cram still hasn't had a chance to look at the software yet. Cram, give me 30 seconds on the clock.
30 seconds on the clock, and go.
I really enjoyed Jessica Jones. I thought it was great. I thought the cast was perfectly cast. I thought that I loved the relationship between Jessica and Luke Cage. I thought it was very honorable to the source material. David Tennant, so nice and cool as the Doctor, and so incredibly evil as the Purple Man. I hated the fact that it looked as though they were going to make him go purple at the end of the show, but then they gave us a tease and they took it back and he looked like flesh-colored by the end, and I didn't really enjoy that too much. Nuke was a strange addition to the show. Member of the Super Soldier program, but he seemed to fit. Tied into Daredevil really well by bringing in Claire. I can't wait to see what happens next season because I can't even imagine what they would touch on since it looked like they blew their load on this one.
I'm holding up the piece of paper because I haven't looked at the software because I was busy actually doing this. 30 seconds on the clock.
Go.
And Jessica Jones was really good. I really enjoyed the fact of, all the characters seemed very relatable, much more relatable than a Tony Stark or a Steve Rogers because, we put them up on pedestals. These characters have real problems. They have real life that they have to deal with. And so I really appreciated that. Overall, I thought that this was much darker than most of the other Marvel things that I've seen in the past, so it may not be as approachable as other things, but the story arcs were really good. Both the overarching story arc that they did and the character interaction in between. So check it out. I think you'll really enjoy it.
Thank you for watching Weekend Geek, everyone. I'm your host, The Dark Knave, along with his henchman, Cram. Tune in again next week. We'll bring back Book of the Week. I'll have a rant under my belt, and we will talk film because there won't be any TV. Everything's still on hiatus.
As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe and share with anyone that you think may also enjoy these videos. If you want to follow up on anything that we talked about today, check out the links down in the doobly-doo.
Doobly-doo. Oh, word is ridiculous. Are you ready, Cram?
Ready.
Supervillain freeze frame.